I thought, they had a terrible, terrible row after Meghan had gone to abroad to talk about never do this with your children, put them in front of a television. They had a massive, massive row. And I think this is Harry trying to make her feel better. That's my view about it. And she would be very pleased, but she'll do this absolutely hideous thing of using an AI thing to have somebody look rather strange, because the face is very strange. It's not right. You can see it's not a natural strain.
Something has shifted and you can feel it. The tone of the coverage has changed. The questions being asked are sharper. And every time the harder questions land, Meghan Markle's team goes completely silent. The mythology she spent years building around her daughter Lilibet, the mystery, the hidden face, the perfectly curated snapshots of a sun-soaked California life is starting to fall apart. And the one doing the most damage isn't some tabloid reporter or palace insider with a grudge. It's Angela Levin, Harry's own authorized biographer. The woman who sat with the prince for months, listened to him, believed in him, and has now decided that careful, polished language is no longer worth her time. Levin's recent statements about Meghan, about Lilibet, about the photos, about the AI allegations, about Archie slowly vanishing from the Sussex story, they hit differently.
There's a huge hypocrisy here given Catherine, Catherine suffering from cancer was hauled over the coals, especially in the American mainstream media. Yet Meghan sort of posts these pictures which all appear to be artificially altered. The actual pictures of the children, which are always so weird. And I mean, the thing is, this could be a total coincidence. Of course it could be. But my point is that it is Meghan who is encouraging this speculation about the identity of her own daughter. That's what I find creepy.
They come from someone with real earned knowledge. She's not guessing. She's not recycling gossip. She had access almost nobody else ever got, and what she's saying now cuts straight through every layer of the carefully managed narrative Meghan has stacked up, brick by brick, over years. The timing is everything. This story didn't land in a quiet news cycle. It dropped at a moment when the Sussex brand is under serious commercial pressure, when Harry's public credibility around children and social media has been completely blown open by his own actions, and when Angela Levin has clearly made a decision, stop softening the words, and say plainly what she actually believes is happening. And what she believes is happening? Way worse than the public version. What makes this moment feel genuinely different from the usual Sussex drama is the pile-up multiple things collapsing at once. The brand is struggling, the photos are raising questions that won't go away, Angela Levin is speaking with a new, unmistakable sharpness. And Harry's double standard on children and social media is now so obvious that even people who wanted to defend him can't find the words. These things aren't happening separately, they're feeding each other, building into something that's getting very hard to contain. And Meghan Markle, whose greatest skill has always been controlling the story, appears to have no good answer for any of it right now. So here's what we're doing today. Following the truth, not the version Meghan's team once told, not the Instagram caption, not the glossy magazine profile, the real version, led above all by Angela Levin, a woman whose patience has run out.
Actually, if she were just to post normal pictures like a normal woman, then everyone would be able to speak and talk about Lily normally, rather than this sort of internet hunt to find the real Lily, which actually is really horrible.
And whose clarity lands with the unmistakable weight of someone who genuinely wished things had turned out differently. Let's start with the birthday photographs, because that's exactly where this chapter opens and where the panic truly begins. Lilibet turned 5 recently. Meghan marked it the way she marks most significant moments, now a carefully staged social media drop. Warm snapshots, soft California light, the suggestion of a life lived with effortless grace, and the quiet implication that she was generously sharing a private, beautiful moment with a world that has, in her own telling, been so deeply unfair to her. Except the world didn't respond with warmth. It responded with questions, because when people looked closely at those photographs, and people always look closely at Sussex content now, because Meghan has trained them to, by making every single image feel like a puzzle, something felt off. The child's face, hidden as always behind carefully placed hair, had a quality that didn't match real photography. Proportions slightly wrong, texture slightly off, a digital smoothness that has no business showing up in a candid family snapshot. And when investigative writer Paula Froelich placed those images next to photographs from a California children's clothing brand called Little Olives, launched around the same time Meghan was building her As Ever lifestyle brand, the resemblance between the children in both sets of images was striking in a way that was very hard to brush aside. Froelich ran the launch copy from both brands through Google's Gemini AI. The result was stark. The As Ever text was nearly a carbon copy of the Little Olives copy, simply repackaged with a royal branding theme. Same rigid structure, same formula, just different words swapped in.
The problem you've got here in a relationship with Meghan and Harry is this is a boy that was pretty much traumatised by media presence when he was little. He didn't really want any of this publicity. He was always attacking photographers. She's someone, ever since she was on the red carpet, who's craved publicity.
She has kept on and on and on and on. She has made him hate his family. She's made him that he's got bad mental health. And actually, you can do that. You can have a person in your life who tries to drown you and make everything awful. And she hasn't tried to make him better.
And this verdict didn't come from a journalist with an agenda. It came from an AI tool with absolutely no stake in the outcome. There's a particular sting in the timing of all this. Lilibet's 5th birthday should have been simple, a mother celebrating her daughter, images shared with real pride and real love, free of the suffocating strategic calculation that surrounds every piece of Sussex content. The fact that it instead exploded into a global debate about AI generation and brand manipulation, that's not the media's fault. That's not the public's fault. Every single choice that created this moment was made by Meghan herself. Could all of this be coincidence? Sure, maybe. California is full of a certain type of woman, launching a certain type of brand, with a certain type of aesthetic. But here's what can't just be wished away. Meghan has already been documented using AI in her imagery before. That's not speculation, that's fact. And the entire mystery surrounding Lilibet's face is a mystery entirely of Meghan's own making. Nobody demanded it, nobody forced it. She built it herself, deliberately, consistently, photograph by photograph, year after year. And now she has to live inside what she built, including the deeply uncomfortable questions that come with it. Because at the end of the day, it is Meghan who created the speculation about her own daughter's identity.
Look at his face, and he can't do it because he still loves her, or, whatever his reason is. He doesn't want to say, whoops, I made a big mistake. You see, all those are not smiling, and she can manipulate him. And I feel that that's what she's done.
That's what makes this genuinely unsettling, and Angela Levin says it best. Her central observation about the photograph situation is so simple that it takes a second to realize just how devastating it actually is. If Meghan simply posted normal pictures of her daughter the way ordinary women do every single day without sparking global controversy, none of this would exist. No mystery, no AI allegations, no internet hunt for the real Lilibet, no comparisons to California clothing brands, just a child's 5th birthday celebrated and moved on from. The mystery isn't something that happened to Meghan. It's something Meghan built on purpose. And Levin doesn't just find this strange. She finds it actively, specifically creepy, and she uses that word with full intention. Because what Meghan has managed to do through this strategy is turn her own 5-year-old into the subject of a global guessing game. The internet hunt for Lilibet's real face isn't the media's creation. It is the entirely predictable result of a mother who decided that controlled mystery served her commercial interests better than simple, honest transparency. And the cruelest irony, Meghan has done all of this while insisting with truly extraordinary composure that every single choice she makes is about protecting her child. That protection narrative has been at the core of Meghan's public identity since the very beginning. Nobody argues with a mother protecting her child. The instinct is universal. The position is almost bulletproof.
She doesn't give a damn about him, does she? Because he's not going to make her the money.
And he's not in it. I mean, what does he feel? He's 7. Well, there it is now, but that's an old photo. But, to say that to a 7-year-old, push him out because she doesn't feel the same about him as she does about Lilith for gaining money. It's just horrible, isn't it? Really horrible.
Frame your choices around it, and suddenly every evasion looks like dignity, every refusal looks like principle, every hidden face looks like an act of maternal love. It was a masterclass in building a moral position that doubles as a shield against scrutiny, and for a long time, longer than many expected, it held. Angela Levin is now publicly taking it apart, not with noise or outrage, but with something far more effective. Specificity. She knows the timeline, she knows the details, she knows what Harry was like before and what he has become now, and the comparison does not flatter the current version. Levin's authority comes from something very real. She was there before Meghan. She spent time with Harry when he was still, in meaningful ways, the man he had always been before, what she now describes, with striking clarity, as a slow and systematic dismantling. She saw the ambitions he carried, she heard his genuine desire to do something worthwhile with his position, she watched him be, at his best, a person of real warmth and real potential. And she has watched with what sounds very much like grief, the replacement of that person, with someone who enthusiastically approves photographs that the world has serious reason to question. The contrast isn't subtle. It's total. Levin put it plainly. If she were just to post normal pictures like a normal woman, then everyone would be able to speak and talk about Lily normally, rather than this sort of internet hunt to find the real Lily, which actually is really horrible. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Harry didn't just approve those photographs, according to sources speaking to royal correspondent Rob Shooter.
I said, he's in a rush to make his mark and seems to treat life as a race too. He explained to me, I want to make something of my life. I now feel there is just a smallish window when people are interested in me before Prince George take over, and I've got to make the most of it. Now then, tell me, that happened 10 years ago, right? Now, if he can't think of a way to do something better over 10 years, I've got no sympathy for him.
Enthusiastically supported them. The same man who stood on public platforms and passionately condemned parents who exposed their children to social media. The same man who spoke with what appeared to be genuine conviction about shielding children from public life. That man is now fully on board, not treating the photographs as a contradiction of the values he once declared so loudly, but as a celebration of family. A distinction that, apparently, makes all the difference. There is a generous interpretation of this shift. People change, perspectives evolve. A father finds a more flexible middle ground. Angela Levin does not find that version convincing because she knows exactly how change works in the Sussex household. It happens through a disagreement, followed by Meghan talking, followed by Harry eventually coming around to seeing that Meghan was right all along. That is the pattern. And in this case, the disagreement was significant. Harry had been genuinely uncomfortable with the contradiction of Meghan speaking publicly about keeping children away from screens while simultaneously building a commercial strategy that placed those very children at its center. His discomfort was real, his resistance was real, and then it faded as it always does. What's striking about Harry's transformation is just how complete it has been across every single area of his life. The family relationships, the military friendships, the charity work rooted in his mother's legacy, the sense of identity that came from being a prince with genuine purpose, all of it gone, all of it surrendered. And what has he gotten in return? A marriage that, by multiple credible accounts, is under serious strain. a brand that is struggling commercially, a life in California that has produced, by every observable measure, a man who is visibly unhappy and privately knows it. What does it feel like to be Harry right now? The picture that emerges is of a man who is lost. He has given up too much to go back easily. He has burned too many bridges to cross them again without serious cost. He has said too many things publicly about too many people who once loved him. And California, the supposed refuge, the promised land of freedom and authenticity, has not delivered what was advertised. He is not free. He is not at peace. He is, by every observable sign, trapped.
You can't actually tell somebody this, to write a biography. In 2017, that's when I wrote that, and you're still getting nowhere by 2026. Wouldn't you be ashamed of yourself not saying that with like a long moan? I was furious reading it.
And the photographs of his daughter that he so enthusiastically endorses are, in their own quiet way, the clearest evidence of just how completely that trap has closed around him. Angela Levin knew the Harry who existed before all of this. She sat with him when he was still making plans, still talking about what he wanted to build, still carrying the warmth and purpose that made him, at his best, someone genuinely worth rooting for. She has watched all of that be slowly, methodically stripped away, and she has run out of the patience required to keep that observation to herself. As she put it, look at his face, and he can't do it because he still loves her, or, whatever his reason is. When someone that close, that genuinely invested in this man's well-being, starts speaking with this level of openness, it means something. It means the situation is considerably worse than the carefully managed public version has ever admitted. Now, while the world has been focused on Lilibet, on her face, her photographs, her 5th birthday campaign, a 7-year-old boy has been quietly and consistently disappearing from the Sussex public narrative. Archie Harrison, Mountbatten, Windsor, the firstborn. The child whose arrival was supposed to be the defining moment of Harry and Meghan's public life together. The child who was, by his mother's own passionate account, the reason they walked away from everything to build a better, freer, more protected life in California. He is gone, not occasionally absent, gone. The Instagram posts, the brand imagery, the milestone content, it is all Lilibet. And that deserves to be examined carefully. If the privacy argument were genuine, if protecting the children from public scrutiny were truly the driving force, both children would be equally shielded, both faces hidden, both children treated the same. Instead, what we have is a clear selection. One child featured extensively, one child invisible. And the variable that explains the difference is not love, and it is not privacy. It is commercial value. In the plainest possible terms, it is money. Lilibet, for reasons tied to her name, her symbolism, the late Queen's legacy, the charged story of a Sussex daughter named after the monarch who tried so hard to hold the family together, generates more interest, more engagement, more return on the investment of her public visibility. Archie, at 7,
no one can take Meghan into the palace, absolutely not, no chance. And he would never, ever upset her. 100 times. You see them when they were away in Australia, they look at each other very nicely, they have whispers, they make each other laugh. They're incredibly easy together.
Apparently does not produce those same returns. And so he has been quietly, systematically pushed to the sidelines by his own mother's content strategy. And that is not an accusation coming from Sussex enemies. That is the assessment of Angela Levin, the woman who wrote Harry's authorized biography, who sat with him in unguarded moments, who understood his genuine love for his children before any of this began. Archie will grow up. He is 7 now, and he doesn't yet have the words to name what he is experiencing. But children feel imbalance. They feel when one sibling is the center of attention and they are not. They feel when they are less visible, less celebrated, less present in the public story of their own family. He will be older one day. He will have access to the internet. He will be able to read all of this, and the question of how he will feel about it, not about the tabloids, not about the media, but about the choices his own mother made about how to value him relative to his sister, that is a question that deserves a moment of silence before we move on. The commercial context matters, and it matters enormously. The photographs, the AI allegations, the Archie question, none of it is happening in a bubble. It's all unfolding against the backdrop of a brand that is, by multiple credible accounts, in serious commercial trouble. As ever launched with massive media fanfare and Meghan's personal promise that this was the authentic expression of who she truly is, a woman who loves beauty, simplicity, and the quiet pleasures of a life well lived. People would buy the lifestyle along with the jam. The product is sitting in warehouses. The numbers are not where they need to be for a brand that received this level of media attention at launch. And in response, Meghan has made a move that reveals the state of the operation more plainly than almost anything else could. She has handed the brand's public face to a minor influencer, a woman named Olivia McDowell, with a following of a few 100,000 and no wider profile. And she is, by the assessment of those who have watched both women present the As Ever range, better at it than Meghan. More natural, more convincing. For a brand built entirely around the personal cachet of a duchess, being outperformed in your own promotional content by a minor influencer is not a small embarrassment, it is a structural indictment. The Sussex commercial operation was built on a very specific premise, that the combination of Harry's royal identity and Meghan's Hollywood connections would generate enough commercial interest to sustain an independent operation of real scale.
That's it. She is slightly frightened of Catherine because she's doing so many good things. But she's got to be very careful, and they don't really want to risk that. I think Anne William is absolutely right. And if that's absolutely right, you stand by them non-stop, and you don't want someone who's really hideous, really rude, trying to destroy the royal family as well as the people in it.
The pieces appeared to be in place. What they never actually had, what has become painfully clear was never really there, was the substance to back it up. The attention was real, the content that was supposed to fill it was not. And into this struggling operation, the children arrive. When the brand needs a boost, the children appear. The pattern is not subtle, and Angela Levin calls it exactly what it is. And what it is not what a mother protecting her children looks like. The Hello magazine moment captures something essential about how all of this is held together when Hello magazine approached actress Abigail Spencer on a red carpet and asked about her friendship with Meghan. The interviewer stated plainly on camera that they are Hello magazine with Meghan Markle, not reporting on her, not covering her objectively, working for her. It was an extraordinary admission made in the most casual possible way, confirming what many people have suspected for years, that a significant portion of the mainstream media's positive Sussex coverage is not journalism at all. It is managed content, a service rendered to a client. And when that service is rendered well, birthday photograph campaigns get reported as genuine family moments rather than calculated commercial strategy. Understanding that dynamic is essential to understanding why the questions around Lilibet's photographs took so long to be asked loudly and publicly. The answer is not that nobody noticed. The answer is that for a long time, certain people were paid not to. But the managed media environment that shielded Meghan for so long is shifting. The questions being asked now are coming from people with real knowledge, not gossip columnists, not internet trolls, but investigators like Paula Froelich and commentators like Angela Levin, who have genuinely earned the right to be taken seriously. And those questions, once asked publicly by credible voices, do not simply disappear because a spokesperson declines to comment. They accumulate, they compound, and eventually they produce exactly what we are now watching, a situation that no amount of lifestyle content or birthday photography can paper over. Now, step back from the specific details and look at the full picture of what has actually happened here. A woman entered the royal family with extraordinary advantages, genuine talent, real ambition, the love of a genuinely popular prince, and the goodwill of a public that was actively rooting for her to succeed. She had every possible opportunity to build something meaningful, and instead she built this: a struggling lifestyle brand, a long list of burned bridges, a husband who cannot acknowledge his own transformation, a daughter who has become a global mystery, a son who has been made commercially inconvenient by his own mother's content strategy, and a watching world that cannot look away. Angela Levin watches all of this with the grief of someone who saw a very different outcome and watched it be deliberately discarded.
Catherine, you can see, has helped make her husband, William, so much better. He knows what it's like being a father. He knows what it's like being a husband. He's learnt it. She's helped him. So you need, if you want a partner, to find someone who's going to help you in your life, not someone who's going to be negative and moan. She moans everything all the time.
She heard Harry talk about the window closing, about the urgent need to make something of himself before the world's attention shifted. That conversation happened more than 10 years ago. And Levin, looking at where Harry finds himself today, is not simply sad. She is furious because the window did not close on him. He handed it to someone else to climb through. And that someone else used it not to build something meaningful, but to sell condiments and hide a child's face in a birthday photograph that the world has genuine reason to doubt is even real. As Levin sees it, no one can take Meghan into the palace. Meanwhile, William and Catherine are doing the actual, unglamorous, day-by-day work of building a monarchy that will endure and that the public can actually believe in. George is 12, about to start at Eton in September, a decision made quietly, carefully, and completely without a press release or a content strategy. William and Catherine visited alternative schools. They weighed what was right for their son. They made a considered, private, deeply parental decision, and then they said nothing about it publicly, because that is what actual protection looks like. Charlotte is 11. Louis is 8. Their parents show up for them in ways that never make the front page, never anchor a brand campaign, never arrive timed to a product launch. Deliberate, present, and completely uninterested in turning childhood into content or children into leverage. The contrast with what is happening in California is not subtle, and it does not require much editorializing. It speaks entirely for itself. Angela Levin is clear that Camilla will never permit Meghan back into that world, not out of personal animosity, not out of cruelty, but out of something far more grounded than either: a sharp, clear-eyed understanding of what would actually happen if she did. The chaos that followed Meghan's entry into the royal family is not something the institution is willing to revisit. The disruption, the leaks, the television interviews, the legal battles, the public dismantling of private conversations, none of that has been forgotten, and none of it has been forgiven at the level required for any genuine re-entry. The settled view among those closest to the family is that the trust required for meaningful reconciliation simply does not exist, and critically, cannot be rebuilt by people who have shown repeatedly and without exception that they are not willing to change the behavior that destroyed it in the first place. You cannot rebuild trust with people who are still actively doing the things that broke it. That is not a harsh judgment. That is just how trust works. Charles carries something heavy, the private grief of a father who has, in any real and meaningful sense, lost his son. Not to circumstance, not to tragedy, but to a set of choices that Harry made and continues to make. That grief is real, and it deserves acknowledgement. But even that grief does not alter the fundamental reality of the situation. Harry, as the person he has become through the choices he has made, is not someone the institution can safely welcome back into its inner circle. The window for a clean, loving, uncomplicated reconciliation, the kind that gets announced with a warm photograph and a brief statement about family, closed a long time ago. What remains is something considerably messier, more painful, and far less forgiving than any of the parties involved might have imagined when the Sussex project first took shape. And the painful part is that everyone involved already knows this, whether they are willing to say it out loud or not. As Levin put it, Catherine has helped make William so much better. He knows what it's like being a father, he knows what it's like being a husband, he's learnt it, she's helped him. So if you want a partner, you need to find someone who's going to help you in your life, not someone who's going to be negative and moan. She moans about everything, all the time. That observation cuts deeper than it might first appear, because what Levin is describing is not just a personality clash or a difficult marriage. She is describing a fundamental incompatibility between what Harry needed to grow into the person he was capable of becoming and what he actually received. William had someone beside him who made him better, steadier, more grounded, more capable of doing the work. Harry had someone beside him who redirected every resource, every relationship, every ounce of his identity toward a different project, entirely one that has left him visibly diminished and privately trapped. Angela Levin has given language to something that enormous numbers of people have sensed for years without quite being able to articulate. The mystery around Lilibet is not a coincidence. It is not an unfortunate byproduct of genuine privacy protection gone slightly too far. It is the direct, calculated, entirely predictable consequence of a mother who made a deliberate decision that controlled mystery, served her commercial and narrative interests better than simple, ordinary transparency ever could. And the cost of that decision is now being tallied in public, in real time, by the woman who probably understood Harry better than almost anyone outside his own family. The cost to Lilibet, who has been turned into a global guessing game before she is old enough to understand what that means. The cost to Archie, who has been quietly sidelined in his own family's public story because he does not generate the same commercial return as his younger sister. The cost to Harry, who surrendered everything he was and everything he had for a life that has not delivered what he was promised. That reckoning is uncomfortable to watch, but it matters deeply that it is happening because when things go unnamed, they do not disappear. They simply continue, unchallenged, doing damage that compounds quietly over time until it becomes impossible to ignore. Angela Levin has decided to name them. And the weight of her specific knowledge, the access she earned, the time she spent, the man she actually knew, means that when she speaks, it lands in a way that ordinary commentary simply cannot match. Now here is the thought worth sitting with before we close today, and it is not a comfortable one. When Lilibet is old enough to search her own name on the internet, and she will be far sooner than anyone might expect, what exactly is she going to find? Not the carefully curated version her mother constructed, not the warm Instagram captions or the soft California light or the lifestyle brand built around the suggestion of a beautiful, protected childhood. She is going to find the debates, the AI allegations, the comparisons to clothing brand imagery, the global conversation about whether the face in her own birthday photographs is genuinely hers. She is going to find the questions about her brother's disappearance from the family's public narrative. She is going to find Angela Levin's assessments, Paula Froelic's investigations, the Hello Magazine admission, the warehouse full of unsold product, the minor influencer who turned out to be more convincing in her mother's own promotional content than her mother was. She is going to find all of it because the internet does not curate itself to protect the feelings of the people at the center of its stories. And the question that sits most heavily is this: when she reads all of it, will she feel protected? Will she look at the sum total of the choices her mother made, the hidden face, the birthday campaign, the commercial strategy, the brother quietly written out of the content, and feel that those choices were made with her well-being genuinely at the center? Or will she feel something else entirely, something that no lifestyle brand and no carefully managed narrative can retroactively fix? These are not rhetorical questions. They are real ones, with real answers that are coming whether anyone is ready for them or not. Archie will be older one day. Lilibet too. They will have full access to everything that has been said, written, debated, and documented about their childhood, and unlike their parents, they will not be able to manage the narrative around their own early years, because that narrative was managed by someone else entirely, without their consent, before they were old enough to have a perspective on it. And that is the part that lingers, not the brand, not the warehouse full of unsold product, not even the AI allegations as damaging as those have been. What lingers is the human cost of it all. 2 children who did not ask to be born into this story. 2 children who did not choose the cameras, the campaigns, the carefully timed content drops. 2 children who are growing up inside a machine that was built around them but was never actually built for them. There is a version of this story where Meghan's choices made sense, where the strategy was sound, the execution was clean, and the commercial operation delivered what it promised. That version would not have erased the ethical questions, but it would at least have demonstrated competence. What we are watching instead is a version where the strategy is visibly cracking, the execution is being handed to minor influencers, and the ethical questions are being raised not by enemies but by the woman who wrote Harry's own biography. That is a specific kind of collapse, and it is worth naming clearly. This is not a media pylon. This is not a coordinated attack from palace insiders with old grudges. This is the natural, inevitable consequence of building a public identity on a foundation that was never as solid as it looked from the outside. Authenticity cannot be manufactured indefinitely. At some point, the cracks show. At some point, the questions become too specific to deflect with a lifestyle caption and a soft focus photograph. Angela Levin represents something important in this moment. She is the credible witness, not a tabloid source, not an anonymous palace aide. A woman who sat with Harry, who earned his trust, who believed genuinely in his potential, and who is now saying plainly that what she sees today is not the man she knew. That testimony carries a different weight than anything a gossip column could produce. It comes loaded with context, with specificity, with the quiet authority of someone who has no obvious reason to lie and every reason to simply stay quiet, and chose not to. Her decision to speak is itself a signal. People who have real knowledge and real relationships do not typically blow them up without cause. They stay quiet, they hedge, they speak carefully, if at all. When someone like Levin drops the careful language and starts using words like creepy deliberately, on the record it means something significant has shifted in her assessment of the situation. It means she has concluded that the cost of silence now outweighs the cost of speaking. And that conclusion, when reached by someone with her background and her access, is not a small thing. What makes the Sussex story genuinely tragic underneath all the noise and the brand drama and the commercial disappointment is the waste of it. Real talent, real ambition, real love, at least at the beginning. A prince who genuinely wanted to matter, who genuinely wanted to build something that honored his mother's memory and justified his position. A woman who had fought hard to get where she was and had the drive and the intelligence to go further. These were not small people with small possibilities. The raw material was extraordinary. And yet here we are, a brand struggling to move product, a biographer speaking in grief, a father in California who cannot look at a camera without his exhaustion showing through. A family back in Britain doing the quiet, unglamorous, genuinely meaningful work of building something that lasts while the Sussex operation burns through goodwill it can no longer replenish. The gap between those two pictures is not subtle. It does not require explanation or editorializing. It is simply visible to anyone willing to look at both images honestly and without the filter of a team whose job it is to make sure you only ever see the one they chose for you. And the children are at the center of all of it. Not by accident. Not because the media put them there. Because the choice is made about them, which one to show, which one to hide, when to deploy them, how to frame them, what commercial purpose they serve, place them there. Deliberately. Repeatedly. Over years. When Lilibet is old enough to understand that her face was the subject of a global AI debate before she started school that is going to require a conversation. When Archie is old enough to notice that he virtually disappeared from his own family's public story during some of his most formative years, that is going to require more than a conversation. These are not abstract future problems. They are real ones, already in motion, already accumulating the kind of weight that does not simply dissolve because the news cycle eventually moves on. The truth, when it finally arrives, rarely arrives with fanfare. It arrives in the specific, quiet, well-sourced observations of people who were close enough to know and who have finally decided that staying silent costs more than speaking plainly. Angela Levin has made that decision, and the conversation she has started is not going to stop. simply because it is inconvenient for the people at the center of it. This story is not over. Not even close. If today's video gave you something real to think about, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content and join the conversation, and this is exactly the kind of conversation that deserves a wider audience. If you are not subscribed yet, right now is the moment. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss what is coming next, because there is plenty more to get into. Share this one with someone who needs to see the full picture, not the managed version, the real one. And drop your thoughts in the comments below. What stood out to you most? What do you think happens next for this family? Until next time, take very good care of yourselves.